Hello and welcome to another 30-Minute Thursday. My name is Amit. It is 2 p.m. in the very sunny, very chilly Pacific Northwest. We're live on Facebook. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope everybody's staying healthy, staying safe, staying sane. Seems like the world is not taking my advice, and certainly things are not staying sane. Man, where do we go from here? Things seem to be evolving on a minute-to-minute basis, depending on where you're getting your news and how you're interpreting that. It's scary, guys. I'm trying to be chipper. I'm always upbeat and optimistic. I think we've got a lot more good than bad, but I'm also not Pollyanna, and so we do have some heavy times, and we do have some heavy subjects to discuss. And so I want to just jump right in here, and first things first, just pray. Really, I don't know how religious you are. Religion and politics are definitely very dangerous subjects to discuss in any kind of conversation. But that being said, I pray for the people of the world. I certainly pray for the people in the Ukraine, and even for the people in Russia, for that matter. I don't think most of these people want anything to do with any of this stuff. I think most people in general just want to live their lives and raise their kids and have have time with family, have time with friends, and do their work and generally just enjoy their lives. And these sorts of things are horrifying. And I'm sure that what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't relish that. I certainly don't want to delve into all of the horror of what we're experiencing and what the world is going through, but it does have an impact. We are all connected here, and so what happens in faraway places has an impact right here in Western Washington, the United States in general, and everywhere between here and there. So I'm going to just jump right in there, and I apologize. I'm looking at myself in the camera, and there's a lot of sunshine, and I don't have good lights here. So I love the sunlight, I love the sunshine, but it's not great. I look like I'm shining, so sorry guys, take it for what it's worth. But let's talk about what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia and how that impacts the housing market right here in the United States. Uncertainty is very, very damaging to all sorts of markets, whether it's the stock market or the crypto markets or the mortgage-backed securities markets. Uncertainty is not a very good thing. And when things get uncertain, which they are right now, when things get really scary, which they are right now, a lot of the institutional investors do what's known as a flight to quality or a flight to safety. And what that means basically is they exit riskier investments like stocks and crypto, and they enter into safer investments. And what is safe in today's day and age is always up for interpretation, but what has been traditionally safe are things like bonds and things like commodities, and more to the point, gold and silver and precious metals. I mean, we're going way, way, way back. I believe it was J.P. Morgan in 1907 who was quoted as saying something to the effect that in a panic, people go into real money, and the only real money there is gold. And that was back in the day when our US dollar was tied to the gold standard. I'm not going to go into the details of what has happened since 1907 and beyond, where we've become untethered from the gold standard. But that's in a scary situation, in an uncertain world, there's a flight to quality. And the good news for mortgage bonds is that we represent a flight to quality right now, believe it or not. We happen to be a darling of the investment world because the U.S. housing market is very, very strong. The mortgage-backed securities are tied to values of homes and tied to good underwriting and tied to people making their housing payments on time. So at this moment, we're looked at as a safe place compared to other places. What are other places? The stock market, for example, Bitcoin, for example, crypto in general, Bitcoin in specific as the lead coin in that realm. But other things that interestingly enough, people are fleeing. When I say people, I mean institutions, really. We're looking at the U.S. Treasury notes. Those are uncertain right now as well, which is usually a safe haven. But now we've got some real questions. We've got some real geopolitical problems that are impacting a lot of things. And as a result of that, institutions and their investors are fleeing to quality. So what does that mean? It means that mortgage-backed securities are up on the day. That's great. Technically, typically, when the mortgage-backed security is up, that means that the interest rates are down. And in general, that's a great thing. In this particular case, it's still a great thing, but we have a lot of other pressures in the economy, big picture stuff, that are keeping interest rates elevated. And even though there's institutions that are fleeing other investments and going into the mortgage-backed securities market, there's still going to be a lot of pain in our industry. There's still going to be a lot of uncertainty in our industry as well, in the mortgage rate environment, because there's other things out there that are pushing those rates up. And those other things are inflation. Inflation continues to be a problem. And now we have a new wrinkle to this problem. So let me take a step back and say that the Fed, the Federal Reserve Board, has been signaling for several months now that they're going to start raising short-term interest rates in order to bring inflationary pressure down. And while they meant to do that, and while they possibly still will do that starting next month after their meeting in March, the question is, what do they really think is going to happen in the face of what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine and in other parts of Europe? Because here's the thing, we're all connected. Our economies are connected as well. So our government is now suggesting or threatening or discussing sanctions on Russia. And we can talk about if you agree with that or if you don't agree with that, if you like our government or don't like our government. Frankly, it's irrelevant. I don't mean to be one way or the other to cut this short, but the reality is that it's irrelevant how we feel about that. They're going to do what they're going to do. And this is going to create more uncertainty. It's going to create more inflationary pressure. So if we sanction Russia, as an example, which is what's been discussed, what happens with the fuel that comes out of Russia? What happens with the fuel that our European allies depend on coming from Russia? Most of Europe buys fuel. I'm talking about gas, heating oil, natural gas, gasoline for your cars. All that stuff comes from Russia in Europe. Very few of the European countries have their own power. The French are kind of a notable exception. They've got a lot of nuclear power. But much of Europe is buying gas and buying fuel and buying heating oil and buying all these other things from Russia. And if we sanction Russia and we say, hey, you guys are playing really bad sports right now, and we're not having this warmongering, okay, fine. But then what happens? No one buys gas from Russia? Where do they get it? Do they stop driving? They stop heating their homes? Do they stop all commerce? Or does it put a huge strain on an already small supply and limited supply? And guess what? Low supply, much demand, high prices. What is high prices? Inflation. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The Ukraine is a huge supplier of a lot of things that people don't even think about that are really necessary. In fact, they were referred to as the breadbasket of Europe. They create, or they grow, I should say, most of the wheat, the corn, the barley, the food that people eat in Europe and around the world for that matter, because everything now is connected, global supply chains. But the Ukraine is a huge supplier of those raw materials, those commodities that go into food and that go into other things. And if that is not producing right now because there's war in the Ukraine and farmers aren't going to farm and refiners aren't going to refine and all the rest of these things, then what happens to all those commodities? And how does a shortfall and a reduction in production, basically, what does that do for overall prices on food and on other materials? The Ukraine is, I believe, the #1 supplier worldwide of a compound of a material called manganese. That goes into making all sorts of power cells and batteries and other things like that. You guys want to have a new car? It's got all sorts of chips and all sorts of things. You want to buy a new home, your appliances have chips. Manganese goes into that. All these things are connected. And when the Russians rolled in and created their whatever it is that they created, all these things now, all these production lines, all these materials, all these other things that are already in short supply, that are already in a lot of demand, now they became even more difficult to get. Now they're becoming even more difficult to bring into the market. And so instead of stabilizing the world and stabilizing the world's economy and the world's supplies, what the Russian aggression has done is destabilize and added. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. So now we've got the Federal Reserve Board, which is trying to bring down inflationary pressure to keep our own economy in check and to help us with our interest rates and with everything else. And at the same time, you've got this crazy stuff going on in Europe that's just adding fuel to the fire and fanning the flames. The Fed doesn't have that many options. The Fed doesn't have that many tools. They've got their, I don't want to say one trick pony, but they don't have too many more tricks than one. So where do they go from here? What are they supposed to do? And what are we supposed to do as a country, right? Do we want to send troops to the Ukraine? Do we want to get into a foreign war here over this? Do we want to tangle with another power that has nuclear weapons as well? That has some really scary ramifications that could pop up very, very quickly. And so we're kind of in a pickle, guys. I mean, I don't. Again, I tend to be I tend to be optimistic. I tend to look at the glass as being half full, not half empty. But at the same time, I'm a realist, and I'll tell you that this is a really weird place to be, and it's a very dangerous place to be. And I pray for our politicians. I pray for our leadership. I pray for our country to kind of find a way through this, and for the world, for that matter, to find a way through this, because this has some very, very big picture problems that could come out of it. It's already started. The markets are down. Don't look at your stock portfolio right now, okay? Do yourself a favor. But here is where we are. So my wife was asking me, so what do we do here? Where do we go from here? And I said to her the same thing I'm going to say to you guys. We keep on keeping on. We keep doing what we're doing. I believe in this country. I believe in our economy. I believe in our housing market. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be bumpy and without pain, but I believe in a world that's got all sorts of negative and horrible possibilities. There's still some pretty good possibilities out there. And the housing market is one of them. I saw something today, in fact, that in 26 states, 26 out of 50, so more than half now. Simple math, right? I know I'm a mortgage guy. We do simple math, not complicated algorithms and differential equations and the stuff that makes Facebook run and all that. Simple math. A little bit more than half of the states in this country, on average, the rent for a home is higher than the PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on a full monthly housing payment. So in more than 50% of our states, it is now cheaper to own a home and make those monthly payments on average than it is to rent a home or an apartment and make those monthly rent payments. And what that means, good news, bad news, what it means is that more and more people are going to enter into the housing market. They're going to say, hey, I want to buy a house. I don't want to spend money on rent. And what that means is more demand. More demand. We don't have a whole lot of supply. Guess what? Prices go up. Escalation clauses continue to go up, multiple offers, all these things that we've already experienced for some time, they continue. And while that might be old news for people in the Pacific Northwest and in other very, very hot markets, it might come as a surprise to some of these states and some of these markets where they've never experienced that before. So the housing market continues to get stronger and stronger. It will continue this way for many years to come. In my opinion, one person's opinion, and that's based on the demographics and based on the household formations, people creating families, growing families, needing a place for their family to live and to grow up. And that's why they start looking to buy houses. And that's what's going to continue to drive that demand. External factors like a war in Russia and the Ukraine, that's going to have an impact on that. I don't know what happens if interest rates continue to go up. I don't know how that's going to impact the demand on housing, but I am certain to tell you that stuff rolls downhill. There's an old expression about that. I'll keep this PG and just say that stuff rolls downhill. So if rates go up and costs go up and everything else goes up, rents will continue to go up and housing prices will continue to go up and everything else will follow suit. Now, there is a limit, right? At some point, I have to tell certain clients that, hey, this is all you can afford based on your current income, based on your down payment, based on your qualifying ratios. We're still underwriting clients properly. So there is a limit. The house may be up to here, but your qualifying is here. There's a gap there, obviously, and that may have a huge impact on some people's buying plans. But in general, the market continues to be red hot. It will continue. Rates are still very good. They're not as low as they were 3 months ago or 2 months ago even, but they're still really good. And they'll continue to be really good. But as far as big picture goes, guys, at the moment, nobody knows. Things are evolving way too fast, and the markets will respond as they do. Keep in mind that markets are made of people, and people are emotional. Myself included, even the people, that got ice in their veins and they can, yeah, they're huge traders and they're huge hedge fund operators and everything like that. They're still emotional. They're still dealing with a lot of information and trying to sort through all of that and figure out what it really means in the big picture. And at the moment, we just don't know. We really just don't know. So I suggest that we stay the course, that we do what's best for ourselves and our families and our loved ones and our immediate circle. I can't control what happens in the Ukraine. I cannot even control what happens in the U.S. I barely control what happens right here in this household, to be honest with you. So I take this with a grain of salt, but I'm also aware that we still need a place to live. We still, as a home, we still happen to reside and be part of one of the greatest countries that's ever been on the planet. Present circumstances notwithstanding, we're still a great country. We still have a great economy. We still have great engines of production and everything else. We just have to turn them on. We just have to get back to where we were many years ago as a country that was ascending, as a country that was growing, that was embracing all the qualities that America has, all the beautiful real estate, all the beautiful, we got an ocean on one side, an ocean on another side, friendly neighbors to the north and the south, and a lot of resources. And we have to get back to that, in my opinion. We have to look internally and say, hey, what happens across the ocean matters, but we also have a lot of things that we can do right here in this country. And that's, again, that's one person's opinion. That might be a little bit off topic. So for that, I apologize. Let me check my watch here. We're doing okay on time, but I'll be honest with you. I've been up for a long time watching the news. I think a lot of people have as well. And I've got so much going on in here right now, trying to synthesize it and coalesce it and bring you actionable information is really difficult, because what I'm telling you right now might even be negated by the time I get off this live broadcast. There might be new developments and new things going on that have just kind of completely unraveled stuff. So I don't want to go too far on a limb here and start talking about things, but I will come back to the things that I've been saying time and again. If you're looking to buy a house, it's still a good time to buy a house. There's no time like the present. Rates are still good. Housing is still important. Housing is still necessary. Don't sit on the sidelines for too long, because things are going up and will continue to go up. In fact, because there's so much demand and more demand coming in, now more than ever, really speak with me, speak with your mortgage lender, whoever that might be. Hopefully it's me, but if it's not, that's okay. Whoever it is though, speak with that person. Make sure that you are pre-approved, make sure that you are pre-underwritten, because we want to be certain. We want to know, especially in an uncertain market and in uncertain times, we want to know as much as we can about what is certain and what is probable and likely to happen. And so please speak with your mortgage professional, speak with your real estate broker. Still a great time to buy a home. You got to live somewhere and rents are going up. You might as well own the home, turn it into something that you'll own for many, many years, that you'll have a lot of joy raising your family or yourself in there. And that's my advice. I know that's probably kind of a small piece of advice in a world of really big events right now. More stuff's coming, guys. This is not the end. It's just the beginning. Things have started. Everything that has a beginning has an end, but we're just at the beginning. So I don't know what's going to come next. Stay calm, though. Stay positive. Stay prayerful. Whatever it is that you hold dear, hold it even closer. And we'll get through all this together. And if you have any questions, I know it's kind of a weird conversation today. For that, I apologize. I do want to tell you that next week I will not be here. I've got a prior commitment, and I'm looking forward to it. But I will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, I hope you guys stay safe. I hope you guys stay healthy. I hope you guys stay sane. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach me. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me through my phone number. You can Google me even. I'm on Google. Awesome. But please, any questions that you've got, just give me a shout. We'll figure it out together. Be optimistic. Be of good cheer. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me on this very, very strange day. Go out and get some sunshine. It'll always make you feel better. Thanks, and have a great day. Take care.